afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to our Sunday I Thrive Live session. And we have a fantastic I Thrive Live session for you today. Today, we're talking about women in leadership in the workforce. So I hope that we have tons of women that are going to be listening in to this really great conversation. And if you can see already, we've got a great panelist right here that's going to share a lot of their valuable information that they've learned through the years. So you're saying, Tanya, who and what is Thrive? So Thrive, of course, is a collective of exceptional forward-thinking women who are dedicated toward infecting positive change in Terrebonne, Lafourche, and our nearby parishes. So through impactful programming, Thrive aims to, one, inspire individuals to lead healthier, more prosperous, and purposeful lives by delivering volunteer services, education, raising awareness, and providing resources to address specific needs within our local communities. And all in all, how are you doing it? How is Thrive doing that? Well, Thrive is doing it by transforming our communities. We are promoting health equity, revitalizing our target areas with innovative programming through volunteerism and, of course, empowerment. And this is Thrive. So welcome again to our I Thrive lesson, I Thrive session rather. So ladies that are out there, share this session. We want to make sure that we get tons of women on the line with us today so that we can talk about a really relevant topic here, and that is women in leadership in the workforce. And so let me, Monique, help me out, Monique, here. What is your take on leadership and women? Is there a difference, between women in leadership and men in leadership? Have you noticed anything over the years?
Great question, Tanya. I think it just matters in how we address certain issues. I think both men and women have very unique styles of leadership. But I believe that a lot of times with women, because of our nature of being nurturers, because of our nature of just having an empathetic background in how we see the world, that we have a laser focus and a difference in how we perceive things. I feel like women are very intuitive in how they can pick up on just emotional cues from the various employees that they may be leading and those that fall under their leadership model with whatever their role may be. Because women have a very unique way where we can lead in our homes, we can lead in the workplace. There are many different areas where we can thrive in what we do in leadership. And I think that's one of the things that make women unique in comparison to men.
You're right, Monique. So I think I'm hearing you say that women are very agile leaders.
Correct.
Very, we can lead in very diverse opportunities and perspectives as well. So I agree with you. Does anybody else agree with Monique?
I do. Yeah.
Tell me more, Renee. Tell me more. What are you thinking out
Well,
there?
I mean, I think she was just really spot on. And I also think, though, I think as women, I think we just set this standard for ourselves of what the receiving end is going to be like. Oftentimes, it's not just about how we lead. I think we just put so much concern on how that leadership is received from others. And so I think we take our audience and the people that we are actually leading. I think for us, it's so much more relational too than I think with men. I know this is not at all about a male bashing or criticizing how men lead, but I think women, we really concern ourselves with people on the receiving end of our leadership. I think it's important for us to make sure that the leadership is effective. It's not just that I carry out something, it's how people are going to be on the receiving end. And I think that ties into what Monique said about our spirit of nurturing people. We want to make sure that our leadership is effective and that people grow and actually thrive from that leadership.
Yes. Absolutely, absolutely. And I think, as women, we sometimes take all of that in, Renee. So do you think that has an impact on how we show up at work very transparently or authentically because of how we lead and how differently it may look?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. I think we carry a lot. I think we carry a lot. So when we show up, we don't show up just for us. We show up for everybody in the place. We show up for everybody in the workplace. And so we carry it. When you say about the spirit of being transparent, we feel like the more you know, the more everyone else knows. And so whatever I have, and I think women are like this. I know when I left a job that I was at for 25 years, I made sure I left someone behind. I made sure I left multiple women behind. I was not going to take what I had gained in 24 years and not leave it with somebody. And so I think, with that transparency and how we carry things and how we show up for everybody there. It really makes a difference, not just in how we lead, how people receive. And I think it's the success that goes beyond us. That's what legacy is all about. Legacy is not about any awards, any accolades and things like that. Legacy is what I leave in people that makes them continue and be able to carry on. So I want to leave every woman with what I gained over 25 plus years.
Absolutely. Sounds like you are creating a succession plan there.
That's exactly what I did.
Renee, we're chuckling, but that's super important because we want that legacy to continue, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want other women to grow. I mean, I just, I don't think I could, if I had looked back and didn't see anybody behind me, something would be terribly wrong.
Yeah.
That means I didn't do a good job. If I didn't look back and see someone sitting right beside me or someone that I knew could fill the place that I left, then that means I did something terribly wrong.
So succession planning is hugely important as well, women. So if you see potential and you see there's a desire, we should be nurturing and pouring into and planting seeds in those women as well so that we can grow them up as well. Mo, you're nodding your head. I don't want to keep picking.
Total agreement. Total agree with what Renee is saying. I think it's a very important for women when you're in a leadership role to build up and have the ones underneath you, behind you, that you pour into, because for all of us, I think on this call, we were poured into by leaders, whoever that may be, whether it's your parents, your mother, your father, people in school as you went through your educational projection and trajectory to the current jobs that we have. So I think it's very important in order for you to see the continued movement of a community that you build and grow and impart knowledge into the generations behind you. That's the only way you can be successful in any type of leadership organization and government and your families overall. That's very important.
Right. And look, I don't want to tell my age, so I won't. But after saying, 20 plus years, and then even beyond that, but one thing I will say, I think women in certain generations, they had to fight so much for their place at the table. They had to fight. When I sat at tables and no one looked like me but me, that doesn't make sense. That is wrong. That is wrong. So what I think is so beautiful when I look at the generations coming up, when you speak and you offer, they are so open. They are like the cutest little sponges. They are so open and so willing to receive whatever it is that you have for them. And I know that there was a time when I think women held on to what they had because they knew what they had to fight for. They knew that they had to be more than twice as good as their male counterparts. That's just the reality. And so when you got something, you felt like you had to hold on to it because God forbid if I share it, that means maybe I lose my place. That's not what makes us multiply and be greater. And so when we come together collectively and we look at the generations coming up, I just think it's beautiful that they are so open and they know, look, I'm just trying to give you something to bring you along the way, to support you in your journey. And look, I can be your biggest fan. I might give you a whole lot, but at the same time, I'm going to be standing on the sidelines. I'm going to be cheering for you, encouraging you, believing that I know you have the ability to thrive and will refuse to let anybody speak against it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that takes, being courageous, Renee, and being confident as well. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Anyone else? Any other panelists want to speak on that? Great discussion. Anything else?
Just to add to what Monique said that I think was very important, women just offer more, I won't say as a whole for men, but offer a little bit more emotional intelligence due to being natural nurturers. And that is a bonus that we do offer when we are in these rooms of power or in positions of leadership. And that is to be appreciated.
I agree, Bree. You mentioned, power. And then, oftentimes when we're in those boardrooms or places of leadership, sometimes there is a male dominance there. And when we see that, how comfortable are we speaking truth to power? Have we gotten there? Especially as a Black woman. Are we really there without being considered the angry Black woman? Give me more. What are you guys thinking out there?
So I do think that I think everyone's journey will be different, but I would hope that we are all more comfortable, and as women, we become more comfortable to be able to advocate for yourself, advocate for your what is it, your perspective on things, so that you can say things in a passionate way without you being perceived as aggressive. And even if you are, maybe that's an opportunity for you to give someone else your perspective of their unconscious bias toward you because of your gender and your race. So I think that even though that unconscious bias may already be there, it doesn't stop you from, making sure your voice is still heard.
Absolutely, Bree. To piggyback off of that, when we have to learn to speak up and know how to have those conversations. And, we have to be able to communicate in a way where people are not looking at us like that. Now, we can't stop everybody's biases there, but certainly when we begin to have conversations, understand you mentioned emotional intelligence, and understand how you are conveying your message as well. And I think that's one thing that we can all take away when you're having conversations, especially HR conversations and leadership conversations, and you're having to rebuttal or maybe just speak your piece, making sure that you're doing it in a manner that it's not offensive to others, or as safely as we can, rather, because you can't curtail, or you can't change the way somebody receives information, but you just need to make sure that you have delivered it in a very safe manner. Yeah, so we've got some really great comments out there. So Dr. Mel Jefferson says, Black women are incredibly powerful, and many of us are unaware of this. A woman must understand how to utilize our wealth and power. What do you guys think about that? Any thoughts on that? Give me some feedback on that comment.
I think that's a very powerful statement that Dr. Jefferson just made. And it's something that we as a society with Black women have to overcome. We're dealing with, even though we've made great strides, we're still dealing with racism. We're still dealing with sexism. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of different messages that were sent out with what we see on television, magazines, and we have to re-educate ourselves as to what our power is, as to what our strengths are. And the more that we can see that, not only see it in ourselves, but also see it in other women, to encourage other women. What right. Renee mentioned before with our history of racism in this country, we've had to overcome a lot of different obstacles where people pinned Black people, women, men, whatever it may be, against one another, as if we're competing with one another. And I feel that that's one of the strongest areas that we as a community have to work on to be more inclusive and work together. If you look at other nationalities, they have a tendency to work more as a team and collectively than Black people do. But that's because of the inherent issues that we've dealt with over time. So we're having to relearn and build ourselves. And I think in this generation, we're seeing a lot more where we're seeing the Black girls rock. We're seeing Black women are powerful, or, amazing. We're seeing those mantras to really rebuild who we are as a people, to say we can do these things. We can support one another. I can give a compliment to my Black sister here who's doing great things, and that doesn't take away from me. And I think that that's something that we have to stop competing with one another, but uplift each other. And the more that we can do that, the stronger and the more influential we will be as a community as a whole. So I think that was a great statement that Dr. Jefferson made.
Most definitely. I agree 100%. It was very powerful. And, age does not just, I feel like, equate wisdom. I think it's just what I've lived and what I've seen. But when I look at women like us, and I look just the women on this panel, is just a spot, just a small fragment of the beauty and the power that exists within us. And when Dr. Jefferson made the statement of being unaware, the things that go before us, before we even walk into a room, and it's the very spirit and the heart of us that we don't own. We are so much more than the face and the beauty that people see. And so when I look at this panel of beautiful faces, I know that what goes before them is the heart and the spirit and the power. And how do we silence the noise of the world world around us that would want to say differently about us and own our rightful place. I think sometimes we don't even realize, or you don't, some young women don't even realize the magnitude of the power in which they come with. Not just a beautiful package, but so much more than that. And so I think sometimes it's, how do we silence the noise in the world around us that would try to establish some sort of standard or expectation of what they think you could be, or even set limits on what you have and the power and the ability that you have within. How do we silence that so we can simply hear the voice inside that speaks to the truth of who we are? And I think that is critical. It's to silence what's around us that tries to create a standard so we can then thrive and rise to who it is that we truly are.
Renee, you're preaching out there, girl. You are just preaching out there, because I think, one, those societal norms are some things that we need to truly address as well. And I think it's a very destructive device to think that we cannot uplift, nurture, support, and comment, and you say, kudos, girl, you're doing a great job. Why can't we do things like that? Just because you win doesn't mean that I'm not going to win. And so when we get that mindset. So let me hear from Ariel and Janice and Kirsten. What are you guys thinking out there? What are you ladies thinking, rather?
I mean, for me personally, I feel like I'm just taking in so much, because I agree with everything everyone has said thus far. As being such a young professional and just taking in everything that people have been pouring into me, finding that person that you actually look up to and finding the person that you want to be is one thing, but then having that person pour into you is a whole nother thing. And it really brings so much joy and so much gratitude, but also satisfaction and just validation that you're doing what you need to do, and you're on the path that not only that you want to be on, but that God wants you on. So just seeing that and just receiving it really does make a difference as being a young professional, and me wanting to be the person that the person sees in me wants me to be, and the person that I want to be. So it's really something. Then I think I was trying to see what else the comments, because it was just so much being said.
It's not a great
conversation. So much great conversation. I didn't want to even say nothing. I just wanted to listen and take it in. But yeah, just I can honestly say, just being poured into is really it really makes a difference in a person's life, and a person seeing something in you that you haven't even seen yourself. It really does matter. And I think anybody on this call who has poured into somebody, or somebody, if they are listening, just pour into that person. If you see something in that person, pour into them. If you may see one thing, you're like, I don't know something about you, but I really like you. I just don't know what it is yet. You may be that person to help them figure that out. So take that time out to really give that person that special attention that they may actually need.
Absolutely. Kirsten?
I have to agree with Ariel. Yes, I'd have to agree with Ariel as well. I think coming in and being a Black woman and young can sometimes feel like a double target. And I just feel like as an older person, or a person that's just a little bit seasoned on the job, pouring in or paying it forward is definitely beneficial. And it kind of gives you that kick, especially if you don't know who you are at the time. And at one point in time, that was definitely me. And I can't lie, it definitely gets easier as you know your purpose and you know what you're there for. But just that little extra kick will definitely help you along the way. So I would have to agree wholeheartedly.
Absolutely. Janice, what would you like to add?
Absolutely. Everything has been great so far. A wonderful job. I have to agree with all the ladies that spoke so far, especially what Miss Renee was saying as far as pouring into others, and being positive and uplifting, to other women as well. Also, I seen a comment that Dr. Mann dropped in the chat, power, poise, something to that sense. Women, we have to, of course, in the leadership positions, of course, we have to remain with poise and professionalism, because I've been promoted recently into a leadership position, and I manage a small team of 30, and I don't have a management background, but I've been gracefully, put in this position. but we have to, of course, stay professional at all times. Managing, a small team of 30, that could be challenging. You have 30 different personalities, et cetera. We can't say what we would want to say. We have to stay poised and professional. And also, to my, to the younger generations that, they're looking up to us, as leaders, women in leadership positions. We as, as who was that, Kirsten, saying young and being a woman in leadership, yeah, we are a double target, and we sit at tables and we might not see everyone at the table that looks like us. So we have to, of course, stay professional and stay poised, and also be confident. Be confident that we have we have this leadership role and we are equipped for the job, and also be firm. I'm a firm believer in, operating in excellence. I have a great team. Of course, we all have those individuals on your team that, we have to give a little bit more coaching counsel, building them up, and as far as, teaching them the proper way of doing things. We would think most adults on our jobs will have, mannerisms and etiquette, but in this day and time, they don't. Like, we can teach, we can talk woman to woman. We don't have to disrespect. We don't have to get loud. We don't have to go, with the name calling. So great information is very helpful, especially, the information that's poured in to someone who's new to leadership role. I look up to you ladies, Tanya and Miss Renee, that's been in leadership positions for time. So absolutely.
Absolutely. Great feedback, Janice and Kirsten. And, Brandy. Hey, Brandy, thanks for joining. And Roxanne, I know you had some pretty great, I'm not sure why Roxanne is not on this panel with us with all the wisdom that she has. Roxanne, log in now. But, Brandy brings a really valid point about situational leadership there. Dr. Ken Blanchard has a book about situational leadership. And so we all lead differently. So there are some leaders that lead very authoritative, some lead very relational, some lead very idealistic. And so we all lead differently. And that's okay because, different leadership styles require different leadership styles. However, I think what's important is that we're able to modify those leadership styles. So ladies, have you ever had to change up some of your leadership styles so that you can drive outcome and results out there? Every situation, not every, but some situations certainly require you to change up your leadership style. Give me some feedback on that.
So I actually want to, because there was a comment that Janice just made, and that to me ties into what you just asked, Tanya, in that I feel that sometimes people view leadership as you have to go through courses, you have to go through trainings, and some of your best leadership training is what you experience day to day on the job, being in those scenarios, live scenarios and situations to learn from. So sometimes that's the best place to even begin your leadership journey. And then from what you glean and learn in the workplace and the organizations that you run, then you can enhance it through the courses that you may take or the workshops that you attend. But I think it's important, for what I've learned over my leadership journey of 20 plus years in the healthcare industry, is that it changes. I can tell you of the managers that I manage. So I'm director of clinical operations for LSU Healthcare Network. We have over 140 employees. That includes employees, doctors, different clinical sites. And I can tell you from each day, I'm not going to lead one person the same as the next. I think it's important that when you're in a leadership role, that you really understand the people that you lead, because everyone's personality is different. So for you to get the best out of that person, which should be the goal of whoever's in leadership, you want to bring the best out of all those who are coming to you for advice, who you are overseeing. What I've learned over the years is I really try to coach my staff and try to figure out and understand their personalities, understand what's the best way to talk to them. I may have one employee that I can talk to in a very direct manner. Another one, I may have to be more relational because they might be a little bit more sensitive in how they receive information. But that's important to understand who you're managing, because if you try to treat everyone the same, I feel that's where leadership can fail you, because you are not looking at each person individually, because you're not going to get the same reaction. You're not going to get the same outcomes. And the overall goal of any leader should be to build the next group. I should make the person that's within my space who is under my leadership better by the time they leave me and go maybe to another job or go to another department. So I think what I've learned over time is that you have to, it is something that's very fluid. You're not going to necessarily have the same type of leadership journey with over your career, and then you grow as a leader. The same person I am today is not the same leader I was 20 years ago. So I had to learn how to become better. I had to learn how to tweak my skills. I had to learn how to go through different things, because that's where adversity comes in. Your growth as a leader gets even more refined when you have to go through difficult situations. You have to learn how to manage those difficulties, because the leadership journey is not one that's going to be flowers and roses all the time. It's definitely not an easy path to take, but it's definitely a worthy path.
And now one thing I'd like to add to that too, because I'm not going to repeat what you said, because I mean, it is spot on, but I think it's important too to see blind spots, because, and when I say by blind spots, you know, people are not going to always present who they truly are and what's really going on. And so sometimes as you learn people's personalities, you also see the blind spots, which is really just opportunities for people to grow in situations. And so sometimes that leading is sometimes nudging people to the next place. It's not always just, I'm going to manage you right where you are. I'm going to manage you to where you can be and where you need to be to truly succeed in where you are. If you just give me what you have today, and I don't encourage you to see what you can give me tomorrow, that person doesn't grow. So leadership and managing is a movement of things. Leadership is moving people to things. You know, it's not just management is about accomplishing objectives. Leadership is about how I develop people. And so you want to be mindful as you manage and as you lead. And I just want to say this to you, Janice, because I have been blessed to watch you at work, you know, through going to your place of employment to volunteer. And you are a born leader. You lead with so much grace. Let me tell you, God created you to be a very poised, kind of a soft-spoken warrior. And so I just want you to know that you were born to lead. So just as Monique said, the whole idea of managing and learning those skills, you were born to lead. That's what you were created for. So you own that. You own it. You claim it. Okay. And I'm just going to leave with that. Because I can keep going.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we were talking about earlier. We oftentimes don't share that feedback enough. We really don't. We really don't. So thank you for sharing that as well. And I was going to say, someone put in I think it was Cheryl Mona Walker here, you know, with the different leadership styles are transactional or more like your manager styles versus your transformational leaders, which are more your leaders who will lead and coach people and inspire others to do things. So Bree, help me out here, like from an HR perspective, you know, how are we doing out there as women? What can we do better? What are we doing really well from an HR perspective?
I think that women are on the right track. I mean, honestly, just studies show, I mean, we all can look it up, that companies that have women in leadership are more profitable because of their diversity of thought, because of their emotional intelligence, like we previously talked about, because of, you know, so much that they bring to the table, the perspective of having more work-life balance, because we know that we have to balance our motherhood and a lot of other things that we have along with our leadership. So I think that women are on a good path, and it's all about making sure that, like Ms. Renee said, we leave the door open for that next generation of women to come in and continue to carry that. And it doesn't just close with the current generation of leaders that we have.
Absolutely. We should broadcast that out, your statistics there. Absolutely. And someone asked, I'm looking back at some of the comments here. We mentioned mentorship and sponsorship as well. And so every time I see the word mentor, it just makes me want to share a little bit more information on sponsorship as well. And so mentors are great, and we should all have mentors. And those are the people that are going to show us how they got to their success place. And you know, how did you get there? What was your pathway? And those are great. Really great to see and hear about. But I think sponsorship is hugely important and has such a huge impact on how we move forward with opportunities as well, because sponsorship are often these situations, or people rather, that will speak your name, share your level of expertise and your value at tables that you're not often privy to be at. And so that's why I say, ladies, if you get the opportunity, let me manage my words. Ladies, make the opportunity to connect with a sponsor, someone that is going to speak on your behalf. I have 3 sponsors, and I'm telling you, I tug on them, hey, and then you just never know the opportunities that come from that. So just anybody wants to speak on sponsorship, I don't want to be the only one that's rallying for sponsors, but I've had some really great experience with sponsors, and most people don't have sponsors.
I can honestly say I'm just now getting introduced to it, with being such a young professional. But one thing I can say that I'm not scared to ask. Like, I'm not scared to be like, hey, listen, I need a new opportunity. If you hear anything, or if you see anything, or if you know anyone, please, if you feel like it's something that's meant for me, please send it my way. And that one interaction, that one conversation could lead to so many different things. But I'm not afraid to ask. I'm not afraid to put myself out there. You have to want that. You have to actually want to get that sponsorship. You have to be open to the idea of somebody else having, your back in a certain room, because some people have so much pride and be like, I want to get this by myself. I want to get it on my own. Who says that God didn't put this person in your life so you can get what you want? Like, don't be afraid to ask that person for some type of help, because at the end of the day, they can help you get to wherever you want to be. So yeah, don't be afraid.
I love that. I love that you said that you speak up and say, hey, what opportunities are there? If you hear something, bring it to me. That's so great to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because sometimes we have to create those opportunities, right, Bree?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, they don't always just get handed to you on a platter. We're not always in an organization where people choose you to be the one that they want to mentor, or want to sponsor for, or want to advocate for. So putting yourself out there, being more open to, accepting that or asking for that is great, is really great.
So I was about to wrap up with the last question of, what would you like to share as your biggest leadership takeaway that you'd like to share with our audience out there? But I cannot move without addressing Dr. Melinda's comment here. Mentoring and coaching, sponsoring, sharing personal experiences, and promoting inclusive hiring practices can empower women and uplift historically marginalized voices. That is huge. That is just really huge, Dr. Jefferson. I wish you were on the line with us, but let me see if I can do it justice here. And so basically what she's saying is that all of those things that she's listed, it's hugely impactful on how women will move to the next level. We need inclusive hiring practices. There's no ifs and buts, no ifs, ands, and buts about it. We need fair pay. We need equal pay. We need those things. We need sponsorship. And we're not talking about woman to woman sponsorship. Oftentimes it is a male that's, sitting there with the handful of influence. I need you as an ally.
Right.
With this African-American woman and say, hey, you know what? This table looks all the same. We need to put a diverse woman in this place who is qualified. And if she's not yet qualified, how is it that we nurture her up? Because we know that there are systemic things out there and there are structural things that don't always offer us the same opportunities to get those check boxes checked off.
Right.
And if that is the case, how is it that we create a very inclusive hiring practice? Dr. Jefferson, I need you on this call with me, but help me out, ladies that are on the call with me. What are your thoughts on that? What can our organizations do to make sure that we are putting things in place so that women have a fair opportunity?
I think it's so important that we're a mouthpiece and not noisemakers. And so I think we have to be strategic, because unfortunately, sometimes we're not always in the place to have that influence in terms of the position. Okay. So if we're high level management, HR, which was a position that I held at one time, we're sometimes in that table. So it's how do we use and how are we strategic and not, people use the word manipulation like sometimes it's unhealthy, but we have to be strategic and cunning, and we have to know the right people, and we have to have the right conversations. And so it's not just, oh, I should have got that job, and why didn't I get that job? And, the expectation that people might have that I'm just going to fuss because I didn't get mine. How do I sit back and say, I'm going to have a strategic conversation, and this is who I need to talk to at the table? And this is a conversation that I need to have. And this is what I need to do with my resume. And this is what I need to do in terms of building my network. And so it does take work, but it's how we're strategic in making that happen. And where we move from the conversation that I am going to have conversation that's going to be effective, and I'm going to have action that's going to be effective, and I'm going to be about movement and about doing, and I'm going to make sure that I have the right people. And it's okay to call somebody that maybe you've never called before to simply say, this is something that I wanted, and I need you to tell me how to get there.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with asking that question and making that phone call.
Renee, that's huge. That's huge. And Bree, I'm sorry, y'all. We got to go over just a few more minutes here because Bree, I think this is so important from a hiring practice here. You know, sometimes we may apply for a job, we may not get it for whatever reasons, but I feel like a lot of us do not go back and say why. What is it that you're looking for? Help us out, Bree. What would you like the women to know that are aspiring to get promotions and, you know, larger roles out there?
Yeah, like you said, asking that why, you know, if it's in terms of maybe just the interview in itself, maybe emailing, asking, you know, what could I have done better or what could I have said differently compared to the person that was offered the opportunity so that I can be better prepared in the future. Or if it's a promotion, you know, I wrote an article about this, and what I prefer to do is, you know, plan ahead before you even go to present your case for your promotion. You know, be able to show proof, measurable proof of what you've done, how it impacted the organization that you're with, so that you have the reason why you deserve this promotion or this pay raise or whatever it is. And if you're denied, can you tell me why? And if not now, will there be an opportunity in the future where this may be suitable if it's not in the budget at the moment? You know, try to push for that why so you can know how to come back the next time, when to come back the next time, and don't just take no for face value of just no. You know, having a why is always going to benefit you more than just being bitter because you were told no once.
Can I ask you a question, Bree? Do you think that it's okay to tell people what you want? And in management and from an HR perspective, is it okay for you to say whether it's the CEO of a company or the manager of, you know, a firm or someplace where you might work? Don't you think it's okay to say, these are my goals. This is my expectation. This is where I want to be. Before the job opening even happens, you state where you want your place. Do you feel like that's a safe move, or you think that's not a not so safe move?
Oh, yes. I feel like that if you don't speak up for yourself, how would they know? You know, if an opportunity becomes available and someone else, one of your male counterparts mentioned what they want and where they want to be, and then that's the first person that comes to mind when that opportunity does become available. So if you don't say what you want, what your goals are, where you see yourself with the company in 5 years, I mean, it's a question that you're asked in your interview process anyway. Where do you see yourself with this organization in the upcoming years? So give people that information. Let your leadership know. Let your supervisors or your mentor know that that's what you want, so that you can be included in their thoughts when things just start to develop in the rooms that you're not in.
Right.
And I would like to say too, just listening to the conversation, because this is great, it's just kind of flip it a little bit too, because we've been talking about from like our perspective going to HR. But I think it's important to look at what Tanya was mentioning before about increasing the diversity in leadership, having more people that look like you and or look like the community in which they serve, because they also have a responsibility to be more proactive in going out to seek diverse talent, to seek individuals in leadership where maybe they're recruiting in certain areas that are only geared toward certain populations of people. They have a responsibility to say, you know what, if I want to see more women, if I want to see more people of color, I need to start going to the avenues where these people are. I need to start marketing and transitioning my recruitment efforts to make sure that I'm being proactive in that, because that's not going to happen overnight and doing the same practices that you've been doing. If you want something different, you have to do something different. So I think it's important that as we are moving in these different leadership spaces, that there is a level of intentionality in trying to reflect that, if that's something that your company is committed to. And I think, to one of the comments that Brittany had talked about, diversity and inclusion efforts are being attacked quite often, quite heavily right now in the current political environment that we're in. So we have to be very cognizant of how we want our businesses and our leadership to be influenced, and also to be the influencers of and making some changes and transitions on our own. So I think that we have to be very intentional in trying to reach those populations. And to what Ariel was talking about, how she was saying how she would go and be proactive in talking for herself. Well, sometimes we have to be the voice where those may not know how to have those discussions. They may not know how to approach different people. So that's where it comes into, when we started the conversation tonight, of having sponsors, having mentors, people in leadership roles giving back and saying, you know what, let me teach you how you can have these discussions. Go to the college campuses, go to high schools, talk to these young people how to interview, to what Janice does with etiquette training. How do you present yourself when you walk in? How do you say and come in with an air of, not an error, but come in with an air of confidence that's not arrogant, but to know who you are. And these are skills that I feel like in our communities, we really have to work on strengthening these young Black girls, Black boys, people of color, to understand how to navigate in a corporate world, how to be leaders. People have a natural tendency toward leadership, but you can also learn how to be a good leader. And I think that's where it comes into, we have a responsibility to give back to our communities and really teach the next generation, because everyone may not have had the same access to resources that we've had. And other people have given us a hand up and coached us and taught us how to do these things. So we have a responsibility to give back to our communities and build them up so we can have stronger generations behind us.
Well said. Well said. And it's holding them accountable. Holding them accountable to fair practices out there. And some of those conversations, we know that diversity work is very incremental. So it doesn't always happen overnight, but we've got to be intentional about getting it done and having those conversations, those very courageous conversations. And sometimes those conversations can make people uncomfortable because these things have been put into place for so long. Structurally and systemically, they're in place. And sometimes I don't know that they truly realize, hey, do you realize that you've never had an African-American woman leader? And they don't see it, they don't think about it, and it's just off the radar. So we bring it to their attention. Your hiring practices, who's on the interview panel? You know, there are biases out there. We have the common biases. If you look like me, you think like me, you got the job. But if my hair is different, my skin color is different, and you may not have the job. And so we have to bring, and have a closer look and conversation with addressing and having conversations and bringing awareness to the biases that are out there, and making sure that we have fair interview practices. That's huge. That is huge. You think about when you get to certain levels in management, and some of the leaders, the hiring managers, we call that the frozen middle, they all look alike. And so you said, yeah, Tanya, we've got a diverse panel, but when you think about the pyramid at the bottom, there rests the Black and brown people. As you go higher to the pyramid, there rests the other populations. And so we've got to, share some conversations about that. How do we break those silos? Anybody else wants to speak on that? Because that's a huge topic. And I think diversity work is everybody's work. It's everybody's work, and it's creating allyships out there to say, hey, can I have a very courageous conversation with you? Building those allyships out there. So we got a lot of chat in there. I think they like diversity, Mo, here. Absolutely, ladies. I want to be mindful of your time. Let's go through the comments, and then we could wrap up with our last question here. It's never too late to learn and advocate for yourself. Yeah, yes. And to go back, I don't know who said it. Was it Renee maybe that said, there's a stigma attached. Don't tell your leader you want a promotion, because they're going to think you want their job, and they're going to do this to you and do that to you. You know what? Your leaders, if they are true leaders, they should be helping to grow you into your next step. So, my team, I want to know, how are things going? How can I help you? What's your plans? What's your development plans? Share that information. I mean, all of us have been in the workplace where they create positions. They want to, they can very well create positions. So,
Mhm.
hey, here's my plan. Here's how I plan to get there. Are you on this journey with me? How can you help me? And then challenge them to help you. That's what leaders do. They inspire. That's that transformational leadership that Cheryl talked about earlier.
Mhm.
Dr. Robertson. Yes, Renee.
The only thing I was going to say, I think somebody said, I think it might have been you or Monique, that inclusion is everybody's responsibility. It almost saddens me though, when I see so many people of value, and they continue to be overlooked.
Yes.
And we cannot fool ourselves into thinking that is not the reality of our world. It's the reality. I am so grateful for the successes that we have, because we do have spots of that success. So how do we communicate more and more to the right people and amongst the right people to make our voice heard? Because you can only silence a powerful group of people for so long. And you can only try to manipulate and say, they're just talking, or try to minimize the value of the voice and of the message. And so I don't know what the answer is. I just know that on some level, we need to figure out, how do we continue to multiply the power of women so that they will become so great, it's going to be impossible to ignore them. And that is where I think, wherever the answer is and however we make that happen, that is really where we need to find ourselves. And we all play a role in that. No matter what age you are, you were born with the ability. And so you're not just here by chance. You're here by God's perfect design. Perfect design. You have to use what you have. Even when some people try to intimidate you, you have to use what you have, because that is where the difference comes. When we stop to sit in silence and not push and not speak, we have to stop that and make sure that we use what we've been given.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, and we'll get off this diversity thing in just a second here. But, when I look at our small towns here, we don't see a lot of diversity conversations going on. I work for a corporation where diversity, equity, and inclusion is huge. And those conversations are ongoing. And so that's what we need to see more of down here. I don't know how many, I'm a firm believer, if you want to change behaviors, and you need some type of human interaction. CBTs are good, computer-based trainings, e-learnings are good, but there is something to be said when you have a human that is holding another human accountable for metrics and numbers and hiring practices. Hey, in 2024, you said that you were going to onboard X amount of Black and brown people in this leadership role. How are you prepping? How are you creating those pipelines to get these people to where they need to be? And that's huge. Until we begin to have those conversations with those employers, we think about family sustaining salaries. How is it that we're going to raise our families? You think about equity, not equality. I mean, I have conversations like this all the time, and people don't quite understand the difference between equity and equality. And that's huge. All righty. So let's just wrap up, because we can talk about diversity for a long time. I'll start with Monique. Monique, share with the viewers what you think your biggest leadership takeaway is. What would you like them to know for aspiring leaders? Well, I think behavior. So I think all of us are leaders, but what would you like to share with them?
Yeah, I would just say that leadership is something that's ongoing. It's not something that people are necessarily born with, but it's something that you can learn how to do. If you're passionate about it, if you are committed to seeing an evolution of yourself and growing through knowledge, through experiences. And I think that there's so much that people will often put certain individual in category and say, oh, this person's a leader, I'm not a leader. And I think what I would want to take home message is that anyone can be a leader. You just should figure out what you feel like your strengths are and what areas that you enjoy and learn and pursue that. And then never pursue learning and improving. Always seek to gain more knowledge, put yourself in areas where you can continue to grow under sponsors, under mentors, readings, the opportunities that your job may offer. There's so many opportunities to make a difference. And I don't think that people should limit themselves to say or categorize themselves and limit what their abilities can be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great feedback. Renee?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
That's okay. So just basically, what would you like to share with the viewers about leadership? What's your biggest?
Okay. Just kind of okay. You know, I think I'm probably kind of a little different when it comes to leadership and managing. I do believe that people are born with a heart and a passion to be impactful and to make a difference and to move people from one place to another and to motivate them. I'm also an advocate for any type of training, development, management, leadership skills, you know, but buying the books and putting it on the shelf or reading the book and never applying it, you know, how do we take ownership of who we are? And that is what leadership, I think, in management is all about. It's first, let me own who I am. Yes. And let me empower who I am. Let me invest in who I am, who I was created to be, what I was born to be. Let me invest in that. Let me get to know myself personally and intimately so I can begin to feed who I am so that I can grow into who I was created to be. I think so much of our personal development, even though we know we have to look to other people in the world to maybe move and help us navigate to our position in the world, what is going to develop me and you inside is what I am going to own for myself. And then the world recognizes that. And then we navigate through the system through support of others. So I think the biggest thing we need to do is we owe it to ourselves to make the greatest investment we possibly can and know who we are so that we can, you know, people always talk about wanting to be the best version of themselves. You were created to be one authentic person. And so how do I find out and get to know who that person is without the negative influence of a world that tries to limit you by what your abilities are? And so for me, what I would want so badly to share with every beautiful face that I see out here is to know who you are and trust that power and ability within, because I got to tell you, the greatness in you, you probably have not even tapped into.
Yes. Self-worth, self-awareness. I love it, Renee. Thank you. Janice?
Leadership takeaways for me that I would like to share is to believe in yourself, be yourself, and be prepared to serve. Leadership is not just a title, it's a lifestyle. Going into the leadership realm, you have to serve. You have to put others before you. You have to not only perform the job, sometimes you might have to be a counselor to your team. You might have to be a prayer warrior for your team, but just be prepared to serve and to be yourself and be who you are and show up and just continue to keep up, the great work as being a leader. Believe it or not, others will, look up to you and they will watch you. So always, be yourself, be your true authentic self and continue to let your light shine.
Thank you, Janice. Love it. Love it. Bree?
Sorry about that. So I would say continue to learn and grow and keep that, keep that in mind. Always be curious. Don't feel like you know everything as a leader. Be open to learning new things from people that you may not expect to learn something new from. Be adaptive to change as your organizations change, as groups change. Be open to that change as new ideas become, as AI becomes a part of our everyday work life and personal life. Be open to all those new changes. Continue to grow with them. Ask for feedback from your team, from your peers, from your leaders that you may have. Always try to grow and change and just continue to be a developing part of your team, not just stuck in those, oh, well, this is how we've always done it type of mentality, because your leadership will get left behind doing that, and people won't want to follow you as a leader when you have that type of mentality. So that's what I would say. Just continue to grow and continue to learn.
That's a whole nother session. So thank you for that idea, Bree, because agility in the workforce is huge. And being able to embrace change and flexibility to pivot onto the next. And so I think that's huge in how, ladies, if you want to become a leader, or you are already a leader, I got to manage my words here. If you want to strengthen your leadership skills, agility is huge there. It is huge because that corporate workplace, your workplaces, they are constantly changing. So you've got to learn how to embrace change as well. So thank you, Bree. Ariel?
Bree kind of took mine, but I think my biggest thing is just like kind of take it off both what kind of Bree and Miss Armand said. Really just staying true to yourself throughout the whole thing. Always being authentically yourself. I work with kids and I work with teenagers, and one thing they can sniff out when you're not being your authentic self, when you being fake or something like that. And I feel like people can sniff out when you're not being authentic. So always try to be your authentic self, even if your professional self is not just try to be authentic and stay true to who you are. Like we said, being adaptive, being willing to listen and take in constructive criticism, not criticism, but constructive criticism of like the way you lead, or the things that we can do better, or just being able just to listen to how we can make things better. Be loyal to the people who are loyal to you. If you see somebody investing time and energy into you, please do the same thing for them. Give them grace, give them just give them something that you wish you would have. Be the leader that you wanted to be. I can honestly say, from this best supervisor I've ever had was him pouring into me and really seeing something in me. And just even the people who serve as my mentors and my sponsors, they see something in me. And when, like I said, if they see something in you, it really makes you loyal to them, and it makes you want to do great for them, not even for yourself. You want to make them proud. So pour into people and make sure that they feel that being poured into, and that's how you can really be a successful leader.
I love it. And so just as we wrap up, to reset this, and Irie piggybacked off of it. Feedback is a gift, ladies. It is a gift. And so don't assume that you're doing this super fantastic job. I would say ask for feedback and challenge your leaders. If you have a leader and that leader's not sitting with you, at least, I meet with my people all the time. If that leader's not sitting with you at least weekly, giving you feedback, hey, how's it going? We don't have to talk about work the entire time, but hey, is there something I can improve in? How am I doing? So at the end of the year, it's not your first time hearing, well, you need to improve in this. No way. I ask you January to November. Now give me my 100% rating, because it's not going to happen like that. What can I change? Is there anything I can improve in? So have those conversations with your leader. You should be touching bases with your leader all the time. And just depending on the culture of your team, I meet with my team weekly, but whatever your culture is, make sure that you've got a routine check-in with your leaders to make sure that you're doing good. Because just from an HR perspective, and Bree, you could probably help me out with this. We had someone who was applying for a job, and she could never get past the internal reference check. And I'm like, well, why? Her resume speaks, wow. Her resume is, wow, what's going on? Well, her leader was not giving her a good reference check. But unbeknownst to the associate, she had no earthly idea that she had, these things that needed to be improved. So have those conversations with your leaders. And I challenge you, if you are a leader, you should be sharing those things with your associate. It's your job, just as importantly enough as it is for the associate, that you help your associates grow. We're tasked with that as leaders. Otherwise, you are a manager and you're managing work. Leaders lead and coach people. Managers manage work. So you decide if you are a manager or if you're a leader. All right, so I think that's all we got. Anybody else got anything? And to all of our viewers out there, if you want any additional information or you like topics like this, go to our Thrive chat box. Let us know what you need. We'll certainly host some more. These ladies are super passionate about growing other women as well. And we're on a journey together. And so we want to make sure that we stay connected to you as well. All right, ladies, I think that's all we got. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate your leadership and keep thriving out there, ladies. Thank you.